Welcome to the podcast, Nick. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you being here. I'm excited to kind of just like pick your brain selfishly, right?
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you're a bit. So we were just kind of talking about this. Like you're basically just an entrepreneur with a young entrepreneur with several different businesses already. But docked living, price properties, or docked living is one of them,
Yep.
and then price properties and investments is another one.
Yep. And then we have Suncoast Landscaping, which is another small business that I'm partnered in.
Cool. So I want to go back to the beginning. Like, where did this entrepreneurial journey start?
It started at a young age, I think. I've always wanted to be a business owner. I've always wanted to do my own thing. My grandfather was a successful entrepreneur, and he was a immigrant, Cuban immigrant, and then he worked his way up. He basically got a job at the labor union, and then they found out he could keyboard, right? And so he went from working on the railroad to in the labor union office, and then he worked his way up all the way up. He was like one of the first elected Hispanics to be a board of director for the AFL-CIO, and then went on to be a entrepreneur. And so I kind of always had that buzz in my ear. And then my dad was like a defense contractor and government contractor. And so I kind of got to hear from my dad, like, hey, if you go into business, you can get a good job, but if you can be the owner, you can do really well, right? And then I heard that from my grandfather too. So it's always been kind of like in the back of my head, like I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't really know it until I went to USF St. Pete. And then I got into a class called Creativity and Innovation and Entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And it really opened my eyes up to like a different world, because I never really liked school. I was decent at school. I'm not like, wasn't a great student, but I wasn't a bad student. And I was just kind of bored, like when you're bored in school. And then went to college, still bored, like comp 1, comp 2, you're like,
come on, give me something exciting.
Yeah, something exciting would be great. And then I was invited to go to USF St. Pete by a friend of mine, and join that class. And I took that class. It forever changed my life.
Crazy.
Yep. And then I went on to get a degree in entrepreneurship from USF St. Pete.
Okay. So that like really triggered it from there. Like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Yeah. It showed me that there was the opportunity to do so. And then through the program, I was doing like pitch competitions and stuff like that. And that really showed me like what was out there.
Yeah. So so then you graduate, you have your degree in entrepreneurship. What are you doing after that?
So prior to graduating, I built a business while I was in school. It was called City Sleekers, and it was a mobile, eco-friendly, waterless car wash, basically like a waterless, rinseless car wash. We ended up building an app where you could order a car wash to wherever your car sat in downtown St. Pete. And it was like the Uber for car washes, in that era of when everything was trying to be the Uber for something. And that was 2015. And we ended up winning the Tampa Bay. There was a Tampa Bay Startup Week, which they do pretty much every year. It's just basically like highlighting entrepreneurship and startups in Tampa Bay. And I ended up winning that pitch competition there. I won the first one in 2012 at the school. Then I went on to pitch in the Southeastern Entrepreneurial Conference at UT, which opened my eyes up to just like all the opportunity that the startup world had for me. And then I ended up pitching at the 2015 Tampa Bay Startup Week Startup of the Year competition, and we won. It was like us and then Viral Styles, which City Sleekers didn't go on to become a 9-figure business like Viral Styles did, but we were still successful, and we ended up going to Las Vegas and competing in the Tech.co Startup of the Year competition. Wow. And so I was doing all this stuff while I was in the program. And then I graduated, and on graduation, I was just kind of burnt out from the car cleaning business. And it really wasn't like, I think Florida wasn't the right market for it. I think if we were in California or Colorado or somewhere that cared more about the like water usage, it would have been extraordinarily successful.
See. Yeah.
But it rains here all the time. So it's not like, and then I ended up just kind of leaving that venture. And then I went back to Innisbrook. I always worked at Innisbrook throughout college, throughout my business career like at night as a server, bartender.
Oh,
And
okay.
so after I graduated, I went back, worked there for a little bit, and started just kind of asking everybody, like, hey, what did you do to like be successful in business? And it was all like, I started my own business or I invest in real estate, or it was I started my
Yeah.
own business and invest in real estate.
Yeah.
And so I started learning everything I could about real estate because I had already known everything, not everything, but I had already been learning as much as I could about business.
Yeah. So that's where the real estate piece comes into play.
That's where the real estate piece came in. Yeah.
What a great resource too, to be able to like just pick, just these
Oh,
they're
yeah.
coming in to eat and you can just have a
And
conversation with them.
there was like guys that sold their title company for $100 million.
Yeah.
And so you're like, oh, wow. Like there's like, I didn't know what a title company was,
Right.
at that point in my life. And then when I found out that that's one of the biggest pieces of the real estate transaction, I was like, oh, wow, look at that. There's a whole nother opportunity out here in a whole nother industry with a million different things that you can make money in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so that's what interests me the most about it.
What did you learn like when you were doing all those competitions and building your car wash business there?
I learned how to put myself out in front of people, which I think is one of the biggest things that people don't do, especially when they think they have like, I got the next best idea, right? It's like, I'm not going to tell anybody about it. You're going to steal my idea. And I've heard this, like, I can't remember who said it, but if someone said it, it's like, nobody wants your shitty business idea. And it's like, so true. It's like, if you're passionate about your business, you're going to make it happen. It's not someone else isn't going to hear it and go, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. I'm going to do that. And even if they do, they're not going to have the same level of passion that you do.
Yeah.
And so I got out there and just, pitched my like life away. Like it was like, instead of always be closing, it was always be pitching. You know what I mean? Like just get out there. What problem am I solving? What's my solution? Who am I? What's the team? Right? Like that was the biggest thing I learned was how to not have fear in telling people what I'm doing.
Yeah. Was that just learned like through that process, or do you think you had some of that before starting that out?
I think I had some of it.
Yeah.
But I think it was reinforced.
Yeah.
And then I did, while I was doing all that stuff in school, we were doing startup weekend events. We were doing startup bus. And startup bus really made me like startup bus. It's a 72-hour hackathon where you get on a bus with 30 strangers. And there's buses from all over the United States and one in Mexico. And for 3 days, you basically build teams. Everyone gets up, they pitch their idea, then you build teams, and then you go from idea to working product demo in 72 hours, and then you pitch it on stage in front of venture capitalists, your peers, and investors, right?
Yeah.
And so we call it the Navy SEAL boot camp for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
That's really what got me to the point of being able to like walk into a room and pitch anything was my experience on Startup Bus, because the whole time I'm pitching, and I had great mentors, and they pushed me super, super hard to like redefine how you present your business to someone, and like in 30 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds. And so I think that whole time of my life was just me getting out there and being able to like learn how to be a better salesperson, a better pitch person, not having fear talking on stage, because I mean, when I did Tampa Startup Week in 2015, it's like jumping behind stage to like try to get the nerves out before I got on there, and so it was a lot. It was a lot of fun and a lot of pitching.
Crazy. I gotta imagine that's a great experience to start your career out, right? Not a lot of people get to do that. I don't think I've talked to any business owner on the podcast that has gone through like that process of starting. Usually it's just like, I have an idea, I'm going to start my business, I'm going to open a brick and mortar or open an online shop, whatever it is, but to go through that, and like, I think to have like that itch to be an entrepreneur at such a young age, like in college and all that stuff is massive.
I was 21 when I got into the program.
That's amazing.
And then the best part about the USF St. Pete entrepreneurship program was I had a business idea and we were doing it.
Yeah.
And so every class was like, usually it'd be like, okay, pick a business and you guys work on trying to figure out how to do this for that business, right? Like it was very much that. For me, for every group I was in, it was my business.
Yeah.
And so I spent 4 years like of college working on my business during the day, working on my business during class, working on my business at night, pitching my business to investors, pitching my business to people at Innisbrook.
Yeah.
And so like for 4 years of my life, I did nothing but that, and I think that really primed me to be in the position I am now, where I'm doing the same thing where it's all day, every day, sun up to sundown. And I've already been conditioned to do it. And I have no want or need to like slow down. It's not like I'm working to retire. I'm building something that I can do for the rest of my life and be happy doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the difference between like the working a job and then being an entrepreneur. Right. But even some, I will say that even some entrepreneurs still just have a job because they don't really have a business. Right.
Yep.
What do you enjoy about being an entrepreneur?
I really enjoy the freedom of being an entrepreneur, even though like everyone's like, oh, you work for yourself. It must be nice. You can kind of take off time whenever you want. And it's like,
yes,
I could,
no. Yeah,
I could, but then I would be behind. Right. But I like the freedom and autonomy to work on what I want to work on.
Yeah.
And so not being told what to do or how to do it or when to do it or where to do it. That's what I like the most.
Mm-hmm. One of the podcasts I did recently, like the guest Jacob brought up the idea of time freedom.
Oh yeah.
And I never thought about it or heard it presented in that way. Like, I got into real estate because I wanted freedom of choice to do the things that I wanted to do and live the life that I wanted to live. But his perspective was you're really just buying back time. Like you want time to do the things that you want to do, whether it's spend time with family. I only want to work 20 hours a week, right? So you're working for that time freedom.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think one of my mentors says it very well. Like he's retired at this point. He's 42, but he's been retired since he was like 33, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
But what he says is I don't trade my time for money. And if that could be the point that I get to, that would be ideal for me, because then you're not having to work to make money as much as you're spending the time doing things you want to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So you got introduced to real estate. Tell me how where you started in real estate and kind of that journey.
So real estate was always kind of like a part of our lives, because one of the things we did in our family was we'd always, like, no matter where we were on vacation, we'd go drive the neighborhoods and look at like houses. That was something fun they always did. Like after dinner, they would take us around and drive us through like the neighborhoods and look at different houses in the neighborhoods and stuff.
Why do you think they did that? Just for the joy of it, or is there something behind it?
I don't know if there was something behind it or not. I think partly just joy in it.
Yeah.
My parents built a house in '99 in Northern Virginia.
Okay.
And so I think that's just something fun we did as a family. And it was like, oh, wow, look at that house. You know what I mean? Like, kind of thing. But then when I was at the bar talking to people, I just kept asking that question of, what did you do to be successful? Right. And it was always business and real estate. So I really started thinking about real estate. I started learning. My best friend, Evan, is in real estate development too. And me and him just started kind of going to the grind nose, like learning everything we could about commercial real estate, value-added real estate, residential flips, like everything that we could think of. And then I told my mom that I was interested in real estate, and my mom's friend had a job opening that was like a listing manager.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, all right, I'll take a pay cut to go learn. Because I like, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of like structured school, but I am a big fan of learning.
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, maybe this is an opportunity. So I took a pay cut. I was making extraordinary money working at the bar at Innisbrook, like doing the Valspar Championship and all that stuff, like extraordinary money. And then that job opening came up and I said, all right, I'll take it. I want to learn. So I went to go work for a Keller Williams team in Newport Richey. Judy Pope's. So it's on the corner of Gulf Harbors. So I got to spend basically 2 years of my life learning everything there is to learn about buyers, sellers, like maintaining properties when nobody's in them, waterfront listings, because her whole neighborhood's Gulf Harbors, so it's all waterfront.
Yeah.
So I spent 2 years working up there, learning everything I could possibly learn. And then this opportunity came to work with Mark Hunter at Docked, and I took it. And so I ended up going from a Keller Williams team. I got licensed, and then I switched from Keller Williams to Dalton Wade, and then I went to Docked to start helping build the development arm of Docked.
And how did you know the guy at Docked? How did you get connected with him?
So I was introduced to him through my best friend Evan, who was doing flips with him in St. Petersburg and Chicago.
Okay.
And so Mark had been mentoring Evan for quite some time. So I had heard his name a few times before. And then Evan was like, hey, this opportunity came up. Do you want to come learn about it? And so I went and talked to them, and it sounded like something that would be really good for me. More freedom, more autonomy.
Yeah.
And then it was co-living. So it was like something that I hadn't heard about before, and I was really interested in it. And it was a startup that was slowly growing. So I was like, let me take the risk and join this team and see what happens.
Yeah, I like that. I think what's valuable about like what your path is, like, it's always been like, I want to learn to be better. Like, what can I do to better myself for the future, right? Not like, how do I make a bunch of money right now?
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It certainly has been more so like, let me learn how to get to that point. I'm willing to sacrifice it now.
Yeah.
Like I know I probably could have done a million different things to make a lot more money, at a younger age, but I wanted to put myself in those positions to learn so that I don't have to go through all the hardships and failures and stuff at a later time in my life.
Yeah.
But I could learn it all now so that I'm prepared to be able to actually take on those larger amounts of money and do the bigger deals and do the bigger developments.
Where do you think you learned that trait from, or
the tenacity,
or just the fact of like, I want to sacrifice now for my future self?
My parents.
Yeah.
Because that's what they did for us, right? So my dad wanted to be an entrepreneur and ended up not being an entrepreneur and ended up working in defense contracting and government contracting for years to make sure that me, my mom, and my brother got to do whatever we wanted to do, right? So that level of sacrifice was made by them. My mom was working a job making like extraordinary money in corporate America with my dad. And she sacrificed her whole career to make sure that my brother and me had someone there with us at all times, taking care of us. So like the two of them made extraordinary sacrifices for me to be in the position that I am now. And that's entirely where it was bred from, is watching them do it for us,
Yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. Let's talk about docked living and like what that is. Because when we talked before, I'd never heard of this concept, and I'm like, why haven't we heard of it?
Yeah. So Docked is a co-living company out of St. Petersburg. We have about 100, we call them their rooms, but 100 members, right? And we do shared housing. So in your typical single family house, you usually have 4 or 5 bedrooms, and that's it. In Docked homes, they're larger single family houses that we've either bought, built, or renovated.
Okay.
And they could have anywhere from 6 to 8, 9 people in the house. And it's a single family house with 1 kitchen, 1 common area, but everyone has their own bedroom and bathroom. So it gives you the feel of kind of like an apartment complex, but it's a single family home with roommates.
Yeah. And how many buildings do you guys have now?
We're closing on our 11th acquisition on Monday.
Okay.
And then we have about another 140 rooms in the pipeline.
Okay.
And we're expanding from, historically, everything has been in St. Petersburg, but now we're scaling out from St. Pete to, we have 1 property in Seminole. We're closing on 1 property in Lakeland. Trying to buy 3 or 4 more in Lakeland. And then we're actively negotiating in Tampa, Gainesville, and then I'm looking at a huge portfolio in Jacksonville.
Okay.
So pretty much, I think the entire state of Florida needs additional forms to solve. Like the affordable housing crisis is real, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's not a clear solution, but there's multiple solutions, and co-living could be one of them.
Sure. Yeah, because otherwise it's like, large apartment buildings or large
For sure.
multifamily buildings.
And this is really roommates. So this is like a professionalized version of roommates.
Yeah.
So I always give the like explanation. It's like if you were in college, say, right, and you and 5 of your buddies found a house that you wanted to rent,
Yeah.
and everybody picks a room. That's what we do at Docked. It's just professionally managed, and we're a professional, almost like a matchmaker for roommates. So they tell us
wow.
like what they're interested in, what, who they are, what they are, and then we do our best to match them with other like-minded individuals in our community in one of the different houses.
Okay. And are you signing like a lease? Like how does that side of it work?
We do membership contracts. So people
Okay.
sign a 12-month membership contract, and in that membership contract, everything's included. So it's, access to the house. It's, we have professional maid service. We have Colombian
wow.
coffee in every house. We do all utilities included, high-speed internet. We do events. So that's all included in their membership. So Docked is really a social club where people have access to the amenities, which are the houses.
Yeah. Very cool. What have you learned since joining Docked? Like what's been like some business tips or strategies that you've learned?
Oh man, I've learned so much. I've learned that for me personally, I think one of the biggest things for me has been learning about how to create like a business where you could be vertically integrated and keeping everything in house. Because one of the things I noticed while working at Docked was like we were dealing with third-party contractors for a lot of the times. We kept getting like screwed over. You know what I mean? Like people stealing deposits.
On the build outs.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, all the build outs. So all the construction, rather, right? And so we would deal with, there's good contractors out there. But there's like a saying in construction, it's like there's 3 things you can either be good, cheap, or on time, right? And you can't have all 3. And so like a lot of the good ones are super booked up. They're super expensive. But in the process, we kept kind of getting, and I don't know if it was just what it was, but we kept kind of just getting the short end of the stick on deals. Like we had those 2 deposits stolen, which was crazy and turned into a whole nother thing. Like where we pay for a deposit on a GC contract, no one ever shows up.
Jeez.
Right? And then we've had people like just do shoddy work and different things. So one of the things we did to solve that was Mark had experience doing flips for like 12 years, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you can, in the state of Florida, if you have a 4-year degree and you have 1 year experience, you can get your contracting license. He had 15 years experience and a 4-year degree. So he got his license. So now we're fully vertically integrated. So we have our own building contracting license, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and roofing.
Mm-hmm.
So we pull all permits in-house. We do all construction in-house. So I think one of the things that I've noticed is like, and my mission now has been to create a fully vertically integrated business where you have ancillary businesses that as your investment strategy grows, all the ancillary businesses grow with it and they can do their own business.
Mm-hmm.
But then you reduce the cost that you have to pay for your investment strategy by doing everything in-house.
Mm-hmm.
So in-house maintenance, in-house cleaning, in-house construction, in-house design and architecture, like everything is done in-house.
Yeah. Is there a certain level that you have to get to get everything in house, or is it just taking the risk?
I think you do have to have some level of experience to like get to that point of qualifying for things.
Sure.
Like the construction license, not an easy thing to get, right? Like not an easy test to pass. Same as like my broker license, like that wasn't easy. So I would say it takes some experience, but I do think that like people could design, they could build their business like that by design, right? So like if they wanted to say, I'm going to do XYZ, they could design it that way.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. So Price Property Investments, when did that start?
That started last year. So
Okay.
that was March 2023. We opened up Price Properties and Investments,
Okay.
which we do buy, sell, rentals, and property management.
Okay. As if you're not doing enough already. It's like,
Yeah.
let's do another one.
Yeah. I want to buy a property management company too and kind of like roll it up into the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Okay.
So that's another eventual goal. But yeah, that was like a goal for me for a long time. I've always wanted to have like my name on a building. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And so
Where does that come from?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where that comes from. But I have always wanted to like, I don't know, see price up on like, I feel like I have a good name for like real estate and investing in general, just being like the last name Price.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to kind of just see it on a building. And, you know, you have like the different brands, right? Like Keller Williams is Gary Keller and the other guy, right? And so I've always kind of wanted to have my own brand like that. And so I actually, through doing doc deals, found a broker mentor, and she was like, hey, you should totally get in your own business, because what you're doing right now, if you had the brokerage level too, you could do so much more.
Sure.
So that's kind of why I got into that aspect of it. And so far so good. I have one agent I brought on. She's helping primarily with docked right now. And we're doing some like, you know, regular real estate transactions, but our primary focus right now is to build the docked brand and do larger and larger developments.
Yeah. I like that. That's very cool. Beyond that, like what's on the horizon? What do you have it?
I'm really trying to get to a point where I can start developing micro units. So from like this whole experience in looking at like what docked has created, like shrinking down the footprint, because effectively at docked, we deliver rent at half the market price, right? And we've done that by shrinking down the amount of size that somebody would kind of live in, right? So they share the amenities, and then they have a smaller living space, and it's bedroom, bathroom. So I'm really interested in trying to find ways that we can develop like almost like micro units. Like if you were to look at like a hotel motel, right? That's like or a no-tel motel, right? Like one of those ones that's kind of like run down. Can we come in there? Can we purchase it? Can we renovate it, make it boutique-y, right? And really nice, and make that an affordable solution to the housing pandemic too.
Okay.
So I'm looking at that. I really want to get into more property management stuff.
Okay.
But primarily it's like, I'm all in on doc, man. I went on a co-living podcast the other day, and the guy's like, you know, what can you tell us more about like co-living? I'm like, dude, I eat, sleep, drink, dream about co-living. You know, that's all we think about at this point. And I see that being like, you know, it's huge in Europe. It's huge in Asia. It's like, it's not something that is new to the world, but it's newer to the United States and specifically Florida, because like the United States is 2/3 of all real estate is single family homes. Yeah. And the nuclear family really doesn't exist anymore. So it's like, what do we do with all these houses where you have one person living in a 2,800 square foot house? And so, you know, it brings up a bunch of other things like mental health and isolation. And there's so many things that come from building community. And that's really what we focus on at Docked, is building communities rather than properties. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I'm trying to get to a point where I can continue to learn about community and what we could do to be better in our community side of things. And so my mission right now is really to grow Docked and do more developments. And I really like watching things go from like vacant land to like a building, you know, and so that's been my focus. Yeah.
I think like what you mentioned about community, I was listening to a podcast about like the family dynamics, right? Like how that's changed over the last, you know, several hundred years. Like we used to grow up and like your entire family would live on the same homestead or in the same house. And so you would have, as a new parent or whatever, you would have the experience and the knowledge right there, you know, on your property to be how to provide help on like raising the families and kids and that sort of stuff. And we don't have that anymore. It's like separate, you know. So I even see like Docked could we even be like, we have a family like living in like,
Exactly.
like a larger family living in that space, right?
Yeah. One of the things like you asked me about how like where that drive comes from, like with my parents, right? And that's because I had a support system.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have support systems. And so like in the community style living, that's like one of the most impactful things I've seen is you create support systems for people who might not have it.
Mm-hmm.
They build friendships, they build like we haven't had anybody fall in love yet that I know of, but if anybody did, let me know.
Yeah.
But we create like these almost like friend groups that go on to go do business together and do different
Yeah.
stuff together. And that creates a support system that someone might not have. So to me, that's a big win because like you said, like in our family dynamic, that doesn't exist anymore really,
Mm-hmm.
especially in because America's like, you turn 18, get out.
Get out.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
get out of my house. You're
Yep.
18. You can take care of yourself now. And what I've noticed from other cultures, specifically like Latin American cultures, because I have a business partner that's from Colombia, and like people will stay at home at Colombia till they're 30, 35 years old.
Mm-hmm.
The grandma lives with them.
Mm-hmm.
All the brothers and sisters live with them until they're ready to get married. Or Indian culture is very similar to that, where like everyone stays together. Like if you look at Dr. Kiran Patel's big house that he's building, he's trying to get everybody
in
there, right? So that they can have that family dynamic and that community dynamic. And I feel that we've lost that in America. So that's one thing that we're trying to help address in a different way.
Yeah, I like that. Do you think we can ever get back to that where we have like
I
family?
think so. I think it's just, the American dream has always been like, to grind hard, work hard, make money, do this stuff, get out, don't be reliant on your family because you can do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe one day we can get back to that. I think that if you can solve it in a smaller scale, then you can solve it in a bigger scale, right? So if we can work on like even Palm Harbor is a tight knit community, right?
Yeah.
And like, I think if, you can solve community levels, like maybe you start in a house, right? And then you go from a house to, you go to a town or a city, and then you go to a county, and then you go to a state. Like maybe there's some way to like recreate that community vibe.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of it's going to need to be more intentional developments. So like one of the larger development ideas that we're trying to figure out how to do is create a pocket neighborhood. So a pocket neighborhood could have like 2 co-living houses. It could have a multifamily building. It could have a couple single families, and then it could have an urban agricultural farm, right? And then you build community around the neighborhood instead of it just being like a development. Because like the development neighborhood is very different than like developing an intentional community in a neighborhood.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's cool. Where can people learn more about Docked Living?
At our website, it's www.dockliving.com. It's docked, like you docked your boat. And then I'm also online at pricepropertiesfl.com.
Cool. Awesome, Nick. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.